Hey guys, I'm doing this uncut and unscripted on the fly, but I wanted to come on here and talk about this whole Ricochet being buried deal. Now, everybody has a right to their opinion on how they feel about the way that Ricochet has been treated. Basically getting barely any offense in on Brock Lesnar at SuperShowdown, and then losing to Riddick Moss on Monday Night Raw. Now, you could say that because of this, Vince, pretty much, if you believe what Dave Meltzer is saying to be true, and other sources are saying to be true, that Vince is pretty much given up on Ricochet, that's your opinion. And if Dave Meltzer feels that that's what's going on, or that's what he feels is happening, then that's his opinion. But here's the thing. A lot of people, when they look at Dave Meltzer, and I say this with all due respect, a lot of people feel that Dave Meltzer is not always the most believable guy. That he only extends the truth. That he exaggerates. Now, we also have to remember, and other people do point this out, that Dave Meltzer is very close with certain individuals in All Elite Wrestling. And that the only reason he likes to say this kind of stuff about someone like a Ricochet is to try to hopefully, get into the ears of someone like a Ricochet to convince them, hey, you need to go to AEW. You can have some great matches and you'll be treated better. That's basically what someone like a Dave Meltzer, in the eyes of many people, might be trying to do. Because I'm going online here and I'm hearing everybody from Just Alex to Joseph Winters to Good Mic Work to JD from NY206 and many others saying exactly what Meltzer is saying. That Ricochet is buried. But I honestly don't think he is. And hear me out why I don't think this is. Okay, let me give this as an example. I know Just Alex is not going to like hearing this, but this is totally, like I said at the beginning, totally uncut, unscripted, and on the fly. But Jinder Mahal, Drew McIntyre, when they were part of WWE, even before they became part of 3MB and afterwards, were they taken seriously? No. Were they put into situations where they got potentially just buried? Yes. They were put into situations where they got buried, if you will. Now, what happened afterwards? Did they leave the company, ask for the release, be let go, fired? Yes. All of the above. And they went and applied the craft on the independent scene to better themselves for the eventual day that they would come back. Now, when Jinder came back, Jinder, of course, was given a second chance, but he really wasn't pushed as being someone you would think would become WWE champion. The first superstar shakeup, or draft, if you will, occurs, and, SmackDown, I think under Shane McMahon's reign for the first year, what happens? Jinder Mahal becomes WWE champion, much to the chagrin of a lot of people. Now, would you have thought that earlier on, before the whole, draft situation occurred, or superstar shakeup, or whatever you want to call it? Would you have believed, Jinder Mahal would have been the champ then? No. Would you believe Drew McIntyre, even after he's gone through a bit of an up and down recently, would suddenly get this resurgence and be possibly on the verge of becoming WWE champion, beating Brock Lesnar? No. You wouldn't have believed it, because what technically happened to them a couple of times, guys? They got buried, right? And that's why I think a lot of people are trying to come out and calm the storm. Yes, everybody has a right to their opinion. I've said this many times. Everybody has a right to their opinions. And if you feel that Ricochet is done because he got buried, because he lost to Riddick Moss, who is the 24/7 champion, which is a championship I will agree should not be taken seriously, but it looks like they're trying to make it be taken seriously, then fine. You have a right to be upset. You have a right to come out and vent. And that's basically what people are doing. They're coming out and saying why they believe Ricochet got buried, but what they're doing is they're venting. I mean, I bet you anything, you could sit next to someone like a JD and say, JD, you're just venting. You know he's not buried. We've seen this before. And someone like JD could be like, yeah, I am venting. What else do you want me to do? They're taking a talent like Ricochet and not doing anything with him. Okay, maybe he's not buried, but he shouldn't be losing to a guy like Riddick Moss who just came out of nowhere. Well, technically, Riddick Moss didn't just come out of nowhere. He is from NXT. And maybe he wasn't big of a star in NXT, but it looks like they're trying to make him a big star here. Supposedly. Now, with that said, do people like Alex and JD and many others that feel this way, even Dave Meltzer, do they have a right to be frustrated and angry at the fact that someone like Ricochet, who's a former NXT North American champion, who is widely known for that classic matchup he had with Will Ospreay in Japan several years ago, for his run as Prince Puma in Lucha Underground, do they have a right to be angry that this talent, in their eyes, is not being utilized the way he should? Absolutely. Do they have the right to come out and vent how they feel, how they feel about what's going on, how they feel that even though they know it's not true, basically that they feel Ricochet is being buried, or a talent like a Ricochet is being buried? Yeah, they have a right to feel that way. They have a right to vent. It's kind of like with family. If you will. Sometimes situations will arise where a family member will just say certain things, and then the other family member has to counter that by saying, you're venting, you really don't mean what you're saying, and basically the response is, well, I have a right to express my feelings. And that's what a lot of the IWC is doing right now. Some of the mainstays of the IWC, anyway, are doing. They're basically expressing how they feel about the situation. They feel that in their eyes, a talent like Ricochet just got buried, when next week, of all weeks maybe, Ricochet will get a win. And maybe he'll get a win over, let's say, the United States champion before Elimination Chamber. Or over the former United States champion. Who, if Andrade loses to Humberto. See what I'm saying? The point that I'm getting at is, I think what we need to do, and I've said this a lot in my videos, is we need to kind of cool it down, and we need to wait and see what occurs. If Ricochet continues to lose and lose and lose, and it doesn't lead to anything storyline wise or character developing wise, then yeah, maybe there is fire where people sense smoke, or where there is smoke, which is currently this whole Ricochet being buried storyline is coming from. There might be a fire. That's what I'm trying to say. So if he continues to lose and lose and lose with no justified reason as to what's going to come out of it, like character development or whatever, storylines, then yeah, then obviously there is fire to the smoke that's being called out or showcased or pointed to, if you will. But if he ends up winning matches, that might be something. There might be something there. Because remember, they have the U.S. Championship, and they know they got to put the U.S. Championship on the line at WrestleMania. You can't just, not have WrestleMania without someone like a Ricochet on there. And they probably know the best solution is to have a multi-man match, maybe a ladder match, we don't know, for that championship at WrestleMania. And maybe that's where he becomes champion. I mean, think about it this way. Guys. Even though it was a 24-hour reign, did anybody expect Zack Ryder to win at WrestleMania and become the Intercontinental Champion after everything he's been through? No. And even though it lasted only 24 hours, hey, look at that. He's holding one of the most prestigious championships in history. The point is, what a lot of people are seeing here when they're trying to counter what Alex and JD and Dave and others are feeling, is basically people that are just venting their frustrations. They're angry, they're upset. They're basically expressing how they feel they see the situation. Even though it may not be true, it's how they see it and they want it rectified. And again, like I said earlier, people that notice this will point at the fact that Dave Meltzer is not always the best resource for information. And that Dave Meltzer also has close ties, like I said earlier, with AEW. And then this might be his own little way of trying to get into the ears of Ricochet and go like, Ricochet, listen to me. This company's burying you. Get out of your contract. Find a way and go to AEW. Oh, the matches you'll have. That's basically how some people view what Meltzer is doing. Again, that's just an opinion. That's just speculation and an opinion. But when people say Meltzer's not the best resource for information, I think what I'm seeing and reading is people basically noticing that all Meltzer's trying to do is get into the ears of these talents to get them to go work for his buddies in AEW or go work elsewhere. The point is, like I said earlier, there are many examples of situations where talent that would get buried and, you know, pretty much dropped down the ladder and forgotten or not utilized properly, all of a sudden have had a resurgence and have gone on to do things nobody thought they would be able to do. Like I say, Jinder Mahal, as much as people may not like to admit it, nobody thought a jobber like that would become champion. Guess what happened? And he had actually a decent reign, whether you liked it or not. Drew McIntyre, same thing. You know, you didn't think a guy like this that went from being the chosen one to 3MB, a jobber in 3MB, to going out on his own and then coming back and dominating, and then even for a bit just, and this is recently, for a bit not, you know, having anything to do or being utilized correctly, you know, potentially buried, if you will. Look what's going on now. The point is, I think what's happening is, you know, right now, Vince McMahon doesn't know what to do with the talent. I will agree with that. He doesn't know what to do with Ricochet, or does he? I think as we get closer to WrestleMania, Ricochet is going to be okay. He's going to be utilized to a point that he's going to actually end up in a match at Mania. And it won't be the Andre the Giant Battle Royal for anybody that's thinking it's going to be that. I think it's going to be for a championship. It's going to be for the U.S. Championship. And it's going to be a multi-man match. So I don't think he's buried yet. If he continues to lose in the way he did on Monday, then yeah, that is kind of a concern to look at. That's kind of like, it's basically, like I said, it's kind of noticing the fire where the smoke has been pointed at by those that say there is fire. Look at the smoke. So I just think we need to wait and see and cool our jets on, oh, he's being buried kind of deal. Because we've seen this before many times. I mean, think about it. I mean, heck, I've been a wrestling fan since about the mid to late 80s. And honestly, I've seen guys that you would think would get buried, would never be given a chance, suddenly just surge up the ladder and become a star. Best example, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was part of the Rockers. Yes, they were a very popular tag team. They won the tag team titles, you know, if you will, on Saturday night's main event in a match that didn't air because the rope break. But you can look into that. You can look more into that, if you will. Actually, check out Brian Zane's Phantoms Champion video that he did from Wrestling with Regret. But point is, when you would look at Shawn Michaels back when he was with the Rockers, you wouldn't think a guy like Shawn Michaels on his own would be elevated to the status he eventually got to, right? Well, look at it now. Look at Shawn Michaels now. Someone that you would think, I mean, imagine this. The IWC around in the late 80s, in early 90s, and they're saying, oh my gosh, the Rockers are getting buried. Shawn Michaels, this talented guy, the Rockers, is always taking the pinfall. He's getting buried. Get my point? The thing is, guys, like I said, I think we just need to, you know, relax, wait and see what occurs, and, you know, leave it at that. Again, like I said, if he does continue to lose, then there is fire where the smoke's been pointed at. But until then, I say, let's see what happens. Because again, yes, everybody has a right to their feelings. Everybody has a right to be frustrated and angry with what, WWE is doing right now. And yes, maybe Vince McMahon doesn't know what to do with Ricochet, but who's to say Triple H won't get his hands on Ricochet next week along with Paul Heyman and maybe do something different with him. And I'd say just wait for now, and let's see how the dice are rolled. You know what I'm saying? Because again, the names of people I used as an example, no one ever thought these guys would ever reach the status that they did, but they did. So now, I think we just need to, wait and see what occurs next. Because what I'm seeing and reading and what other people are seeing and reading in social media going back and forth is they're just seeing people, like I said earlier, that are expressing how they feel about the situation from their point of view by venting their anger, by coming out on YouTube, coming out on Facebook, coming out on Twitter, and basically venting out how they feel. Even though they know it may not be true, they're just expressing how they feel. And that's why, you're seeing all this Ricochet's being buried kind of deal. Because all it really is, folks, is just people venting how they feel about the situation. Even though, like I said, it may not be totally true. But let me know what you guys think, though. Comment down below. Let me know what you all thought about what I had to say here. Unscripted, uncut, and on the fly. And I will talk to you all later.